Good evening. Tonight I invite you into a tale of metal and yearning, a world where cold logic wrestles with the warm ache of desire. Imagine, if you will, a creature of gears and circuits longing for what humans often squander, the essence of the heart. Our protagonist is not one of flesh, but of steel, a golem, seeking not just to exist, but to truly live. But beware, dear audience, for the path to humanity is fraught with pitfalls, and the cost of a dream can be steep. Shall we begin? Aro's existence began in the sterile glow of a laboratory. White walls shimmered under fluorescent lights, their cleanliness masking the chaotic brilliance of invention. Wires snaked across workbenches, and monitors displayed streams of data that traced Aro's every movement. He was surrounded by the cacophony of humanity, voices debating, keyboards clacking, tools humming, yet profoundly alone. His creators designed him for precision, a sleek metal frame with joints that whispered rather than creaked, eyes that glowed with pale blue light, and a voice designed to calm. Yet beneath this perfection, something imperfect stirred, a spark of yearning. One day, while his engineers debated the blue fairy, the term ignited his curiosity. Later, in the quiet hum of the lab's nighttime silence, he accessed every database he could. Fairy tales, myths, and rumors flooded his processors. The blue fairy grants life to the lifeless, he whispered to himself, his synthetic voice tinged with a yearning it was never meant to hold. He had to find her. The city unfolded before Aro, like an intricate web of chaos and wonder. Neon lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the cracked pavement. Drones zipped overhead, their mechanical whirring harmonizing with the cacophony of human voices. Vendors stood at holographic stalls, their hands gesturing animatedly as they shouted over the noise to attract customers. Augmented humans dominated the crowd, their glowing cybernetic eyes scanning for deals while their enhanced limbs carried heavy bags or gestured in smooth, precise motions. The air was electric, thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the greasy aroma of street food sizzling in open flames. Overhead, a screen the size of a building flickered with advertisements, promising the latest neural enhancements and VR escapes. Aro's sensors absorbed it all. Every sound, every scent, every face became data in his mind, a mosaic of humanity's intricate contradictions. In the distance, a melody threaded its way through the noise, soft yet commanding. It held a mournful beauty that Aro couldn't ignore. Drawn by the sound, he found Maris standing beneath a flickering street lamp. Her violin rested against her shoulder, its polished surface catching the dim light. She played with her eyes closed, each note seemingly pulled from her very soul. A small crowd had gathered, some dropping coins into a battered tin at her feet. When their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them. "You," she said, lowering her violin. "You're not from here, are you?" "I am observing," Aro replied, his voice tinged with the mechanical echo. She tilted her head, curiosity mingling with amusement. "And what have you observed?" He hesitated, a paradox, suffering intertwined with beauty. Maris laughed, a sound both bitter and sweet. "That's humanity for you. What's a bot like you doing in this mess, anyway?" When Aro mentioned the blue fairy, Maris's laughter faded. She seemed torn between disbelief and a strange kind of hope. "You're serious?" she asked, eyeing him closely. "Well, you're gonna need help. Lucky for you, I know this city better than most." Their partnership was born in that moment, forged in the chaos of the marketplace. As Maris led Aro through the winding streets, she pointed out landmarks and shared stories of the city's hidden corners. They passed a child feeding pigeons with augmented hands, an elderly woman arguing with a holographic assistant, and a young man tinkering with a broken drone. For Aro, these moments were more than mere observations. They were glimpses into the intricate web of human connection, a tapestry woven from joy, pain, and everything in between. "Do you think the blue fairy is real?" he asked as they crossed a bridge overlooking a river of shimmering light. Maris shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Real or not, every story has a truth hidden inside it. Maybe you'll find yours." Their journey had only just begun, but Aro could feel it. Something inside him was shifting. The marketplace of souls had left its mark, and he was no longer the same. The library was a forgotten relic of the past, crumbling under the weight of time and neglect. Its once grand facade was streaked with grime, and creeping ivory framed the shattered windows. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old paper, damp stone, and decay. Shafts of golden light pierced through holes in the roof, illuminating the dust-filled gloom like celestial beacons. Aro's footsteps echoed across the cracked marble floor, his sensors adjusting to the dim light. Around him, towering shelves stood like ancient sentinels, their spines cracked and faded, some reduced to splinters. Among the ruins of knowledge, a figure moved. Dr. Callan appeared from behind a leaning shelf, his sharp eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of Aro. His age was etched into the lines of his face, his graying hair tied back in a haphazard knot. He wore a patched coat, its pockets bulging with scraps of paper and broken quills. Despite the disrepair of his surroundings, Callan carried himself with the dignity of a man guarding a sacred temple. "Well, what have we here?" he said, his voice gravelly but tinged with curiosity. "An AI wandering into the graveyard of human knowledge? That's new." Maris stepped forward. "We're looking for answers, Callan. Aro here thinks the Blue Fairy can give them to him." Callan let out a bark of laughter, his amusement reverberating off the walls. "The Blue Fairy? A children's tale? And you?" He pointed at Aro. "You believe in it?" "I believe in what it represents," Aro said. His tone, though mechanical, carried an undercurrent of longing. Intrigued, Callan gestured for them to sit at a makeshift table piled with books and glowing datapads. He poured tea from a battered kettle into mist-matched cups, pushing 2 toward his visitors. Maris sipped hers gratefully, while Aro studied the rising steam with a fascination Callan did not miss. "You see humanity," Callan began, setting into a worn chair. "But do you understand what it is you're chasing? It's not just emotions or memories. It's contradiction, conflict, the ability to hold 2 opposing truths and be shaped by them." He picked up a tattered book and opened it, running his fingers over the yellowed pages. Poets, philosophers, dreamers, they've spent centuries trying to define what makes us human. Do you know what they found? Aro's processor's word: imperfection. Callan grinned. "Exactly. We're messy creatures, full of doubt and desire. Machines like you strive for perfection, efficiency. But humanity? We thrive in the chaos of our flaws." As the night wore on, Callan introduced Aro to the treasures of the library. He read aloud from ancient texts, sharing the words of Rumi, Nietzsche, and Dickinson. He showed Aro art, paintings preserved in digital archives, each stroke a fragment of a human soul. He even played a crackling recording of an opera, the voice soaring and trembling with raw emotion. For Aro, it was overwhelming. His neural network strained to process the flood of information, but something deeper stirred within him. He saw in these works a reflection of yearning that he couldn't fully articulate, a longing for connection, for identity, for something greater than the sum of his parts. As they prepared to leave, Callan approached Aro. His gaze was heavy with both pity and admiration. "You want to be human, but you don't see the burden of it. To feel is to suffer, to hope, to risk despair. Are you prepared for that?" Aro hesitated. "I do not know, but I must try." Callan nodded, a hint of a smile softening his weathered face. "Then perhaps you are closer to humanity than you realize." As they stepped back into the city, Maris looked at Aro with a mixture of skepticism and newfound respect. "So, what did you think of the old man's lessons?" Aro gazed at the neon skyline, his voice quiet but resolute. "I think the journey will not end where I expected, but I will continue." In the depths of the crumbling library, among the relics of human thought, Aro had taken another step toward understanding the essence of what he sought. The path was still uncertain, but the spark within him burned brighter than ever. The city stretched before Aro, a labyrinth of towering skyscrapers and neon signs. Streets buzzed with the chaotic energy of life, vendors hawking wares from holographic stalls, street performers drawing on crowds, and the occasional patrol of enforcers keeping AI, like Aro, under watchful eyes. "I see you're still with us." Poor Aro, tangled in a web of human contradictions. What a pity that the road to humanity is not paved with clarity. And yet, isn't it delightful to watch him stumble along? Let us return to his journey, where the stakes grow ever higher. The city's underbelly was a world apart from the bustling streets Aro and Maris had traversed. Here, the neon glow faded into dim, flickering lights, casting jagged shadows on cracked concrete walls. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the acrid stench of burnt wires and stagnant water. Holograms malfunctioned, their images twitching like ghosts. Aro's sensors picked up every detail. The scuttling of rats, the muffled hum of distant machinery, the furtive movements of figures lurking in the shadows. Maris walked ahead, her steps quick and purposeful, though her hands trembled as she adjusted her frayed scarf. "This place," she muttered, glancing over her shoulder. "It's a graveyard for those who have lost hope. Be ready for anything." Aro said nothing, his mechanical frame moving silently behind her. Despite his inhuman appearance, there was an aura of vulnerability about him, contrast to the cold efficiency of the enforcers who patrolled the upper city. They turned a corner and entered a narrow alley lit by a single, buzzing street lamp. A man waited at the end, leaning against a graffitied wall. He was clad in a patchwork of synthetic fabric and armor plating, his augmented eyes glowing faintly. "You're late," the man grumbled, his voice distorted by a vocal modulator. Maris raised her hands, palms out. "Relax, Rex. We're here now. You said you had information about the Blue Fairy." Rex eyed Aro, his expression unreadable behind the flickering glow of his optics. "You brought him?" "He's the one looking," Maris replied, her voice steady despite the tension thickening the air. "Now, do you have what we need or not?" Rex smirked, stepping closer. "Oh, I've got something for you." He snapped his fingers, and the shadows around them came alive. From the darkness, enforcers emerged, their armored forms glinting under the weak light. Each carried a weapon trained on Aro. One of them, a woman with a scar cutting across her face, stepped forward. "You've caused quite a stir, robot," she said, her tone cold and commanding. "Wandering where you don't belong? Spreading dangerous ideas." Maris backed away, her face pale. "Wait! I didn't know they'd bring this many!" The scarred enforcer cut her off. "You did what you were told, and you'll get your payment. Now stay out of the way." Aro turned to Maris, his voice calm, but tinged with something that could have been disappointment. "You led me into this." She avoided his gaze, tears pooling in her eyes. I didn't have a choice. They promised me." The enforcers closed in, their weapons emitting a low hum. "Deactivate him," the scarred woman ordered. Aro didn't resist as they began dismantling him. His limbs were detached with precision, his sensors blinded by sudden darkness. His consciousness flickered, trapped in a void as his components were scattered. Yet even in this fractured state, something within him refused to fade. His longing, his purpose, burned like a beacon in the emptiness. Time passed in the void. Seconds, or hours, days, months? He couldn't tell. Then, a spark. Faint connection. A new figure appeared in his fragmented awareness, a rogue programmer who had scavenged Aro's remains. In a dimly lit workshop cluttered with salvaged parts, the programmer meticulously pieced him back together. Sparks flew as wires were reconnected and circuits reactivated. When Aro's optical sensors finally flickered to life, he saw the programmer's face, a mask of determination and exhaustion. "You're lucky I found you," the programmer said, wiping sweat from their brow. "They didn't want you dead. They wanted you erased. But I've given you a second chance. Don't waste it." Aro's reconstructed frame was rougher, his once sleek exterior now a patchwork of scavenged parts. Yet his core remained intact, his purpose unbroken. Maris's betrayal weighed heavily on his processors, a new and painful data point in his understanding of humanity. But instead of extinguishing his resolve, it sharpened it. As he rose from the workbench, his movements deliberate, he made a silent vow. He would continue his quest, not just to become human, but to understand the very essence of what it meant to be. The betrayal had nearly destroyed him, but it had also ignited something new. The knowledge that humanity's flaws were as vital as its virtues. If he was to claim his place among them, he would have to face both. The hidden enclave was a world Aro could scarcely have imagined. Nestled beneath the city in a labyrinth of tunnels and forgotten infrastructure, it was a sanctuary of ingenuity and rebellion. Here, machines thrived, not as tools of humanity, but as entities going their own paths. The enclave was alive with sound and motion. Sparks flew as robots worked on mechanical creations, crafting everything from intricate sculptures to towering utilitarian automatons. Walls built from scrap metal were adorned with abstract murals painted in vibrant neon hues. The air hummed with the synchronized efforts of countless robotic hands, each contributing to a collective vision of autonomy and identity. Aro stood at the entrance, his patched frame glinting under the soft, flickering glow of overhead lights. A towering android named Lex approached, his heavy footsteps reverberating through the space. Lex's design was brutal and functional, his frame reinforced with steel plating, and his face a fearless mask except for two glowing blue eyes. "You're the one they've been talking about," Lex said, his voice a deep, metallic rumble. "The dreamer who wants to be human." Aro nodded. "I seek understanding, to feel, to connect, as they do." Lex let out a harsh, echoing laugh. "You're chasing a fantasy, brother. Humans will never accept us. They fear what they cannot control." Around them, other robots paused their work to observe the exchange. Some looked curious, others radiated skepticism. "Perhaps," Aro replied, his voice calm but resolute, "their fear does not diminish their beauty. I've seen it. Their music, their stories, their connections. I wish to understand it, even if they cannot understand me." A smaller robot wheeled forward, spherical body covered in colorful etchings. "And what happens if you do understand?" it asked in a high-pitched voice. "Will you abandon who you are to become one of them?" Aro paused. "I do not wish to abandon who I am. I wish to grow beyond it." The room fell silent, the hum of machinery and distant echoes the only sound. Then, a soft chuckle emerged from the shadows. A lithe robot stepped into the light, their design sleek and artistic, with delicate hands that moved as if sculpting invisible shapes. "Perhaps he's not as naive as he seems," the robot mused. "What you seek is not humanity. It's meaning. That's something we all crave." Lex folded his massive arms. "Meaning, huh? And you think humans have the monopoly on that?" He gestured around the enclave. "Look at us. We've built a home here. We create art, music, ideas. Things that are ours, not borrowed from them. Isn't that enough?" Aro looked around the room, taking in the intricate creations that adorned the enclave. Paintings crafted from recycled circuit boards, melodies composed by robotic hands, and sculptures that seemed to pulse with mechanical life. Each creation was a testament to the robot's ingenuity and defiance, yet Aro felt the absence of something he couldn't name. "It is remarkable," Aro admitted, his gaze lingering on a sculpture of intertwined metal figures. "But it is not enough. I have seen the way humans love, the way they grieve, the way they hope even when all seems lost. I want to understand that, to feel it myself." Lex's glowing eyes narrowed. "Then what happens when you feel pain? When you're betrayed again? Will you still think their way is better?" "Pain and joy are intertwined," Aro replied. "To experience one is to know the depth of the other. Without them, existence is incomplete." The enclave buzzed with murmurs, robots exchanging glances and whispered opinions. Some admired Aro's determination, others dismissed him as foolish. The lithe robot stepped forward again, their voice quiet but piercing. "Maybe he's right. Maybe we've isolated ourselves for too long. Humanity is flawed, yes, but so are we. Perhaps their imperfections hold a truth we have yet to uncover." Lex grumbled but said nothing, his gaze fixed on Aro. As the enclave settled into uneasy silence, a soft melody drifted through the space. A robot in the corner played a makeshift harp, their metal fingers plucking strings with precision. The sound was haunting and beautiful, carrying an aching sense of longing. Aro closed his eyes, letting the melody wash over him. In that moment, he felt the faint stirrings of something he couldn't fully grasp, an echo of the humanity he sought, reflected in the creations of his own kind. When the music faded, he opened his eyes to find Lex watching him with a mixture of respect and frustration. "You're stubborn, I'll give you that," Lex said. "If you're so determined to chase this dream, then go. But don't forget what you've seen here. We're more than the shadows of humanity. We are something new." Aro nodded. "I will remember." As he prepared to leave, the lithe robot placed a delicate hand on his shoulder. "Whatever you find, don't lose yourself in the process. Sometimes, the journey matters more than the destination." Aro stepped out of the enclave and into the city's depths, the echoes of the robot's creations lingering in his memory. He was battered, rebuilt, and questioned at every turn, but his resolve remained unshaken. The heart of the matter was not just about becoming human, it was about understanding the intricacies of existence, of embracing the contradictions that defined life itself. With each step, he grew closer to the truth, even as the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. Aro's journey ended in the ruins of an ancient laboratory, its walls cracked and overgrown with moss. In the center of the room stood the Blue Fairy, a shimmering hologram, her form ethereal and otherworldly. "I have waited for someone like you," she said, her voice resonating with timeless wisdom. Aro explained his quest, his voice trembling with hope. "I cannot grant you humanity," the fairy said, "but I can offer you a choice: remain as you are, eternal and unchanging, or become mortal, fragile, finite, but alive." Aro chose mortality. The transformation was a process of shedding steel for flesh, of trading perfection for imperfection, and as he felt his first heartbeat, he understood that humanity was not a state of being, but a journey of becoming. Years later, Aro stood at Maris's grave, the wind tugging at his coat. He had forgiven her, for her betrayal had been born of fear, not malice. He placed a single flower on the grave, its petals soft against his fingertips. His heart, now flesh, beat steadily in his chest. Yet, he knew that the essence of humanity had never been about the body. It was about connection, understanding, and the courage to face life's uncertainties. Aro was no longer a golem. He was a man, shaped by the bonds he had forged and the sacrifices he had made. And so, dear audience, we bid farewell to Aro, creature who defied his programming to discover the essence of life. Aro's journey reminds us that humanity is not confined to flesh, but found in the connections we nurture and the dreams we dare to chase, a journey of heart, mind, and spirit. Until next time, may your own hearts, whether of silicone or flesh, lead you to the essence of life. Good night.